Ding dong, the witch is dead. Thomas Frank has finally been sacked. Welcome to Nick's COYS Corner. Well, we can't say this hasn't been coming. In fact, it's gone on far too long. I never wanted him in the first place. I've said from pretty early on, as you know in my videos, I had major doubts about him, and I think he should have gone a long time ago. So what do we do next? Interim manager. It's going to be a tough situation, as I'll cover shortly. But first, on Frank, I just think he had to go, right? The style of football was atrocious. He didn't believe at all in Tadarius to do, in attacking football, in being brave, taking risks. And last night's game against Newcastle was just, disgusting, to be honest. The first half in particular, we were so afraid to try and go forward, to play at our own stadium. And Newcastle spent a lot of the first half just kind of camped outside our box. And it just summed up how kind of it's been for months, really. Negative performances, defensive performances, but defensive without even being able to defend. And there was just nowhere left to go. And, I know there's been injuries. The injury crisis has got worse and worse, but we had spells through this season where we had enough players available to get a lot more points than we've got. And even going so far back as the West Ham and Burnley matches, with the players we had available, we should have been getting 6 points from those crucial games. We didn't. We got one, and now we are, make no mistake about it, in the midst of a big relegation battle. Thank God Sesko scored last night for United to at least equalise at West Ham. But we are in big, big danger because, our morale is on the floor. I mean, the players look completely shot of confidence. And Frank has contributed to this. There's a lot of stuff coming out today. And I know you always see stuff about managers once they've gone. But I've kind of seen some of this stuff over the last few months being hinted at. And you can tell from the way that Frank speaks that he was too negative. And his mindset was all wrong. Constantly going on about how good the opposition are. Constantly talking about what we need to do to stop the opposition, how to defend, never talking about what we can do, how we can implement our game model, how we can improve as a team to dominate opponents. It was always focused on the opposition. So it doesn't surprise me at all, the kind of stuff that's coming out, that most of our training was focused around, how do we stop the opposition? Long throws, corners, things like that, because it was pretty obvious watching us that we had no patterns in possession and just didn't look like a team at all. I don't think the players enjoyed it. I really don't. I think several of our senior players have looked pretty miserable. I think some of the new signs, like Kudus, got kind of, you could see over the weeks he got more and more kind of depressed looking as he was playing. And I don't think it could have been enjoyable for him to play this style of football that we've had. I think the owners, I can't believe they've waited this long to sack Frank. I think Vinay Venkatesham and Johan Lang have a lot to answer for as well. I think their lack of action and their constant backing for Frank has been a joke, and it has led to this point. We didn't sign anyone in January, apart from Gallagher and Sousa. Again, wrong profile for me of Gallagher, but not enough bodies anyway when you consider the situation we've been in. And there must have been another player out there we could have got over the line. That's how I feel. But the lack of action, I think, over getting rid of Frank quicker is what really irks me. And yeah, they've not been good enough at all. The owners, Vinay, Johan Langer, and if I'm the owners, I'm seriously considering getting rid of the pair of Vinay and Johan Langer this summer, because I don't think they understand what Spurs are all about, and they've shown it with, one, choosing Frank in the first place, and two, sticking with him this long, when it was pretty clear for a long time that this guy was out of his depth and didn't understand Spurs. So, another terrible manager choice by the club in a string of bad decisions over the last few years since we sacked Pochettino. And, yet again, going for a defensive, pragmatic coach, which does not work. I don't know how many different ways I can say it to the club if they're listening. Does not work. We have to stick to our principles, our ideas as a club, our club philosophy of attacking football, trying to have possession, trying to take risks and dominate opponents. That's what we're about. And if we stick to those ideas and we consistently pick managers that fit that, we will have success sooner rather than later, even if that particular manager doesn't work out. At least when you build your squad, you'll be building a squad that's fit for that kind of style. So Frank had to go. Like I said at the beginning, I didn't want him. I had serious doubts about it. People that know me from the forums know that. I've said it, it's not hindsight. I had strong feelings about it before he even came. We hire so many managers, I've become pretty good at knowing which ones definitely won't work out. It's much harder to predict which ones will work out, though, I will say that. Hopefully, we can now look at an interim. Who that is, I'm not quite sure. We need someone to come in that can really give the players a morale boost, a confidence boost, so they can just go out and play. But at the same time, it needs to be someone that's got kind of some tactical acumen and can bring the out of possession game, work on some possession patterns. And for that reason, I'm not sure someone like Harry Redknapp would work. He's been out of the game for so long, and the game has evolved so much since he's been out of it. How would he deal with the amount of different pressing structures there are now? How would he deal with the kind of build-up patterns that there are now? Maybe you use him just as a figurehead for confidence, and then you use the coaches like Heitinger and Justin Cochrane to try and implement the kind of more tactical stuff. I don't know. But one thing's for sure, Frank had to go. The issue we have now is we have, I think it's 12 games left. Our next game is Arsenal, which is going to be incredibly hard anyway, let alone in the current situation. We'll probably lose that no matter what we do. And so we'll have 11 games left and we'll be right in the mix of the relegation battle. And our confidence will still be low, so we won't get that boost probably from the first game. Look, fingers crossed we can win or draw in that Arsenal match. Would be fantastic, and that would make a massive difference. But I just don't see it, not with the amount of injuries we've got. And injuries is the other thing. So whoever comes in now has got even less players available than we've had for all the season. If we'd acted sooner, if we'd acted before Christmas, if we'd acted even at the West Ham game, we'd have had more available players to try and get points on the board. Now we're scrambling for points later on in the season, and we now have loads of players out, loads more than we had earlier in the season. So it's an awful situation, and it's going to be really tough no matter what we do. I think we have to use some of the younger players. I think we're going to have to lean on them, even if it's not ideal. I think Luca Williams-Barnett, Teenan Thompson, the pair of them should be used off the bench to start with, but they're going to need to be used in matches this season in the Premier League. I have faith in their ability. I think whoever comes in as manager needs to really be good at managing confidence. If they can do that and give those young players a boost, it should help. I think I'd use those two. I think Byfield needs more minutes as well. I don't think we have a choice. And then, do we do something like look at Raheem Sterling on a short-term deal until the summer? I would never have gone for him normally. I just think with Odebear now out as well of an ACL, just purely in terms of numbers, we're running out. And even if you use the younger players, I think having someone like Sterling there may be needed. So it's not something I would normally suggest, but I think a short-term deal for someone like Raheem Sterling, because he's a free agent, that may be something we have to do. And then try and use the young players as well. Use Thompson coming off the bench for Tell. Use Williams-Barnett just inside right and have the right back overlap, for example. Do something like that. Use Mason Melia when he's fit off the bench as a young player. Again, this is not a good situation. It's not an ideal situation, but we are at a desperate point. And if we just keep using the same senior players over and over again, then what will happen is they will break down injured as well. So we have to use some of the younger players, I think, to spread the minutes. So, look, it's a very tough situation for us. I am extremely worried. I've said it before about relegation. I think it's the biggest possibility, certainly since the growth season. And in that season, we had Klinsmann come back to save us. We're not going to sign anyone now unless Sterling does sign and pulls off a hat-trick somewhere for us, for example. We've got to stick together as fans. We need to make every single home game now, regardless of what we think of the owners and the way they've dealt with things. We have to believe in our club. We have to stand up for our club. We have to be there, and we have to be that 12th man. No matter what we think, no matter what we see on the pitch, we have to do our bit to try and drag our team over the line, because our very existence is under threat here. And as fans, you and I, we have to do our bit. Even though, look, we pay ridiculously expensive money for season tickets. We have been treated to a shambles of a season. And quite frankly, since Pochettino, it's not been good enough. But this is our club, not the owners. It's our club. And we need to do what we can to save it. It shouldn't be down to us. But let's try and play our part where we can. And that's my message to fans. We're all in the same boat together, no matter what we think about this player or that player or the manager. We can be there for each other, and we can try and do our best to drag our team over the line to get points on the board. So, you know, I always try and stay positive, even though I've got a lot of concerns. I pray we make a good decision with the interim. I pray we make some good decisions with the players we do choose to use. I pray we have some luck with injuries from this point forward. And most importantly, to all the Spurs fans out there, stick together. We'll get through this. We can do it. To dare is to do. Come on, you Spurs!